Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio.
Hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. So after an exciting weekend of rugby, round 3 of the Six Nations is done and dusted. Ireland continuing their winning ways by beating Wales. Scotland retaining the Calcutta Cup for the 4th consecutive year. Yes, that is 4th consecutive year. And there was last-minute drama in Lille where Italy were merely inches away from beating France. Meanwhile, England A were in action, putting on a dominant display over a Portugal 15 and showing Steve Borthwick the breadth of talent eagerly waiting in the wings for the national team. Joining me to discuss and debate all things rugby is, of course, the guru himself, Steve Cording. Hi, Steve.
Yes, let's talk all things rugby and not football this weekend.
Okay, why would that be?
Well, I think you don't want to talk about football either, do you?
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean,
yes, Saturday's trip to Old Trafford was not a successful one. Let's put it that way. And I think you had a similarly unfortunate trip to Wembley this
I did, yeah. I just wondered when one of my teams were going to win at the weekend. I hate to say it, but in my day, I went to watch Chelsea beat Man United in the cup final with a Didier Drogba goal in the last few minutes. And then on the Sunday, Wasps beat Toulouse in the European Cup final. So, that's what you call a great sporting weekend. This weekend was completely different.
It was. So I went up to Manchester with my son Alfie on Saturday, watched United lose, then watched England lose on the coach on the way home. Then Alfie lost his cup semi-final on Sunday morning. So, yes, it was a pretty tough weekend to take. Ooh. But, yeah.
Well, anyway, let's talk more positively. Our special guest this week was originally due to be with us before Christmas, but picked up a little injury and couldn't make it. So I'm delighted to say he's with us now. It's Harlequins winger and scorer of a hat-trick. Not just one try, not 2, but 3 for England A in that game against Portugal. Cadan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. A bit battered and bruised first 80 minutes for a while, but no, all good, thank you.
Excellent. Now, obviously, a handful of players have already been capped. You had quite a young team, really, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Lots of players knocking on the door for a place in Steve Borthwick's squad. I guess it's, we've got to balance it a bit. It wasn't a full-strength Portugal side, certainly not the one that beat Fiji in the World Cup. But it's still, having been in your position a few times, it's nice to get a run out in an England jersey against an international team, no?
Yeah, definitely. And I think to chuck a load of young boys in together in a different environment, and you have 3 training sessions together, so to come up and produce a performance like that, yeah, we're all pretty happy with it.
And I obviously know George Skivington very well from my playing days at Wasps. He was the coach, along with 1 or 2 of his assistants. I mean, your coach week in, week out very well at Harlequins. Sometimes it's nice to hear different voices and just see how things are done a bit differently.
Yeah, definitely. And George was definitely overseeing everything, but the likes of Sam Vesti at Northampton, who obviously they've been ripping it up in attack. So to get a different kind of view from him was pretty nice. And then Don Waldock, obviously at Gloucester as well, just to get different people's opinions on things and how they see it through their eyes it's always helpful as a player.
Yeah, and I suppose there's limited things you can do in 3 training sessions. So it's just a question of making sure that they've got a few moves that involve you, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
And unfortunately they did. I mean, were you... anything Van der Merwe can do, you can do as well, right? Is that what you're saying?
He didn't quite run as far for your 3 tries,
exactly,
did you?
No, mine were more walk-ins, yeah.
Now, you've been involved in Steve Borthwick's squad.
Yep.
And, you've had a couple of injuries to contend with, which happens to us all. You're obviously quite keen to get back in the England squad. I'm not sure. Do you wait for the England coach to phone you, or do you pick up the phone to the England coach and say, listen, obviously not now because he's busy and preparing, but do you keep that dialogue open, or is it just a question of just playing your way back into contention?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I came back, I did my MCL on my knee right at the start of the season. I had a good chat with him then about what I need to improve on and what kind of things I can work on. Biggest things, obviously, getting back fit. And then when I did my ankle again, I kind of knew what I had to work with. But yeah, Steve's very much about keeping that dialogue open.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's good.
Contacting different coaches if you want to work on your defence, contacting Kev, Simfield. So yeah, it's very much an open dialogue.
Were you at Loughborough University for the 3 days that you were away then, were you?
So we were up there most of the week, and then we went and did a captain's run at Welford Road, and then we stayed in a hotel just next to that.
Did I hear right on commentary that you had a game of cricket? Is that right, while you were up there? Or not? No.
We had a game. We did a bit of cricket in the team run.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Sam Vesti's all about getting touches on different kind of balls, so it was all.
And you clean bowled Alfie Barbary, is that right?
I did clean bowl Alfie Barbary. That's great how that's got around. Yeah, you won't be happy that's got around.
Is there a social media clip for that or not?
I don't hope so. I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'd like to think there is one.
Speaking of social media, I mean, obviously, having gone away on international duty, you know, the players from Quins would focus on that. But do you all still keep in contact with each other on a WhatsApp group in terms of the international players that are away, or is it very much you probably don't hear from them when they're gone?
We've got a pretty close squad, so yeah, I feel like we all keep in contact. We do have a big Quins group chat, but I feel like it's more the individual connections. So yeah, we'll be messaging them, seeing how the camp's going, hoping they will be playing on the weekend.
It's a weird time though, isn't it, at the moment? Because you're off to Portugal this afternoon for some warm weather training. We're not jealous at all. But I mean, there's actually no rugby at all going on this weekend. Top flight rugby, obviously at lower level there's still games, but it's probably the first time that's ever happened during the Six Nations, isn't it? So how do you keep that motivation going?
Well, especially as he's just come back from an injury.
Exactly.
So he's desperate for a game and there's no game to play.
Yeah, I think that was the most frustrating thing for me. Got on the bench against Leicester, played 20-30 minutes, and all I wanted to do was carry on that run. But yeah, unfortunately there was no rugby.
And I guess the only game that you could have played in for Quins was on Friday night, and you couldn't play in that because you were playing for England Day.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Well, at least I got 80 minutes under the belt in this one. But I think some boys have played 17, 18 games in a row since the start of the season. So this break's probably come at a good time for them, whereas it was just a frustrating time for me.
And you're there for a week in Portugal?
Yeah.
Do they give you a bit of a who you're rooming with, or do you know what's going on?
I think we're staying at Brown, so I think it's like little apartments. So I feel like they'll probably keep all the back three together, well, hopefully they will, because I don't really want to be with the big snoring prop. But, so hopefully I'll be with all the backs.
Same old, isn't it? Really.
Although I actually roomed with Josh Youssefa Scott, and he was the silent sleeper this week. So yeah,
honestly, you move in with one of the backs, mate. And literally, they set up shop in the bathroom, and you've got a little shelf for yourself. They put all their products out there, and then there's a tiny little space in the corner.
What are you trying to say? He takes pride in his appearance, and you didn't care.
No, that's Danny Care. Maybe I'm thinking about Danny Care. I mean, I obviously don't need any hair products, so I'm all good.
You taking your golf clubs or not?
No, I'm actually not. I'm not a massive golf, but I think there's been a golf day booked for the boys. We've got one day off.
Honestly, you can't take your golf clubs. I just come back from injury, just rock up with my clubs.
I reset, maybe. Well,
I mean, to be fair, we used to do that. I'll never forget. Clive Woodward took us down to a training camp with the Royal Maroons. And Clive's there with the Brigadier on the front lawn, just preparing, and Matt Dawson walks straight up to him with his golf clubs.
See you in 4 hours.
Which is obviously just a joke, but Clive didn't see the funny side of that. No,
funnily enough, not. Yeah. Shall we touch on Murrayfield? Now, I'm not expecting Cadan to have too much of an opinion like you have, Mr. Dallaglio, but. You were quite positive yesterday, I thought, in your Sunday Times column.
It's easy when you see a result like that to think that England are just the worst team in the world and Scotland are world beaters. But as we all know, that the margins are a bit finer than that. I think England had emotion, they had passion, they started the game with real ambition. I just think they overplayed a little bit. You know, England at the minute are damned if they do and damned if they don't. They played in the World Cup, attack for England used to be 2 phases: boot the ball up in the air, see you later. Which for winger is not particularly nice. Now that nearly got us to a World Cup final and probably would have won us a World Cup final. But no one wants to play like that, so everyone's having a go at England. They then changed the way they play, and they made 22 mistakes. So you turn over the ball 22 times against a decent, very decent Scotland team, and you're going to make mistakes. So on the one side, I was actually really pleased with England because I knew that, with the backstory of what happened with Jamie George leading up to the game, I thought that they showed, tremendous courage and ambition. Unfortunately, they just overplayed a little bit, and they don't have. It needed some of those experienced players just to stick to the game plan, because when you go 10-0 up away from home, you shouldn't be losing by the margin that you were.
No, well, Maro Itoje has said that post-match in today's coverage that the game plan was ignored and that they started playing hot potato rugby, which obviously is what accounted for 22 turnovers. Just looking at England, though, I mean, I can... Going back far enough, I mean, I remember in the 1991 World Cup, as far back as then, that England were accused of playing boring 10-man rugby to get to the World Cup final, then tried to play an expansive game and lost the final to Australia. Now, is it always been this way for England? No. Are they always caught between?
Not really,
or do you have to... I mean, 2003, the great thing about that team was they played the conditions. You played the conditions, and that's the way you played. Whereas at the moment, we seem to be intent on going, this is our game plan, we've got to stick to it, can't change it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a balance, isn't it? Test match rugby is about good defence, good set piece, but also just building your way into the game, and keeping your error count down. I mean, England didn't give that many penalties away. I think 5 or 6 in the game. Set piece was good. It's just the turnovers, trying to play and the most dangerous, the most vulnerable, attacks come from. Most vulnerable defences come from turnovers, and the mistakes that we made in knocking the ball on and just presenting the ball to Scotland was and I just think I'd be interested to hear Cadan's point of view. When you break down the components of any game of rugby, you've got set piece, you've got defence, you've got all these things that you've got to deal with. Special teams. How much time do the teams actually spend on attack? Because and focusing on the attack, because the challenge for any coach when you've only got limited amount of game time is where can I make the most gains? Well, if we've got a good strong set piece and a good strong defence, then that's where we spend most of our time and then we go to attack. Whereas actually, certainly in the Wasps team that I played in, less time on the set piece, which is it sometimes can be your undoing, because we used to lose a lot of scrums and lineouts, but when we had the ball, we knew exactly what to do with it. Yeah. I'm just interested to see what that balance is like at club level, for instance.
Well, yeah, at Quins, I think we're probably pretty similar to that Wasps team. I think attack is in our DNA. I think with Nick Evans running it, we have a lot of our focus on attack. Yeah. But like you said, in this modern day rugby, defence and set piece is such a big battle, especially when you step up to that test level. So I think there probably is a huge emphasis on that, because ultimately set piece and defence can win you test matches, and you can play almost that boring brand of rugby and win games by kicking it a lot. But I think you have to have an emphasis on that transition, because like you said, when defences are at their most vulnerable, you need to be ready to take those 1, maybe 2 opportunities that you do get at the highest level, because there aren't many.
No.
You just need to be ready to be able to take them when they're on.
Yeah.
Which is what Scotland did.
Yeah, and
exactly.
First of all, for all our Scottish listeners, those living in England anyway, a credit to them, because they play very well, and they're a better side than I think people give them credit for. Tough World Cup group, and they're probably in terms of their selection, in terms of their coaching group, they've probably had the most stability in the last sort of 12 months. Everyone else has sort of changed a few coaches, changed a few players, and therefore they look good. I mean, they do look good. They probably should have beaten France, and they'll be going into St Patrick's Day, with a Six Nations showdown against Ireland. So, but it is now getting. It's getting painful for English fans, because I think we've won 1 out of the last 7 Calcutta Cup matches. Which,
what do you think of Duhan van der Merwe as a player, and what do you think of his second try? Which is
it's the Wingers Club. They all stick together.
is that what he's? Yeah, I mean, I've seen you. Obviously, I've seen a couple of tries that you scored like that in the corner when you've had a defender coming across. Never when there's been nobody there. Have you tried to put it down?
I think he must practice it or have it in his head. He's used to doing those finishes. So I think rather than eliminate the risk of trying to dive in, and Tommy Freeman was coming across to try and knock him into touch, I think he just, maybe a bit for the cameras as well, probably. I think it looks a bit cooler.
Brave boys to put the ball down with one hand. I'll tell you what now. Because I've never...
Well, in the old days, it wouldn't have been a try, because he'd have been in touch, wouldn't he? Touching the flag. So.
Yeah, exactly. But
phenomenal player, though.
No, but then again, you look at that game on the weekend, and Scotland did only have 3 or 4 moments. Yeah. They just took every single one of them, I think. If you look at the match on a whole, I don't think they didn't dominate like us as much as their scoreline probably suggests. It was just those 3-4 moments when you got players like Finn Russell, Hugh Jones, Duhan van der Merwe, and they took their moments.
Well, their red zone efficiency was unbelievable. It was 4 points per entry versus 2 for England, which says it all. But to your point, Lol, I mean, just looking at the numbers there, I mean, in terms of carries, metres made, scrum success, line-out success, England were ahead.
They played well. I mean, the thing is, if they'd have played like they played in the World Cup England in those conditions, they probably could have easily won that game. But they're obviously, they're trying to add layers onto their game. They're trying to, improve the attacking structure. I just think, 10-0 start, great. But then we just we almost got a bit too carried away, a bit too pleased with ourselves, and just started throwing passes that, all over the place. I mean, Ollie Lawrence, I thought, is a fantastic player, but every pass he got seemed a bit...
One wanted to touch. I
just think, I think we just need to simplify the game a bit more in attack until you start to develop layers. We're not Ireland yet. We haven't got that kind of cohesion and that game understanding. Just, I don't know. I mean, it's funny, in my day for England, the backs used to have about 36 moves, or 38 moves, and they used about 3 of them. The same ones, because the same ones are the ones that work really well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Anyway, looking back, obviously, Caden, once you get back from your son in Portugal, you've got to start switching on for the Premiership. Quins being second behind Northampton, and obviously you're going to come up against them in the big summer kick-off at Twickenham, which is on the 27th of April. I mean, how different are those games at Twickenham feel to being at the Stoop? I've heard a lot made this weekend about what a great atmosphere Murrayfield had, and wouldn't it be great if we could have that for England matches? Now, obviously, when you have Quins playing there, it's a completely different atmosphere to what you get for an England game. It must be pretty special to play there for Quins, and hopefully, obviously, one day for England.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, it's an incredible atmosphere. I think I was actually in the stands for the big game this year, so it was a bit of a different perspective after playing the last 4. And yeah, the whole place was buzzing. I'm hoping we get a similar turnout to the big summer kick-off. Hopefully a bit of sun, and obviously, you'd like to say 2 of the 2 best attacking sides in the league going head-to-head, first versus second. So, yeah, it should be a good battle. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, is it a misnomer that about Twickenham? Do they need to improve the atmosphere, or do they need to improve the play first?
I think
Just
at club level, I think it's superb.
Yeah.
I just question what's going international level. I have to say, I mean, I haven't really had the match day experience for a while, but when I went there for the England-Wales game, I was quite shocked at what I saw.
Yeah.
I mean, for starters, there's way too many people outside buying drinks when the game's on.
Yes.
And you get up out of your seat about sort of 50 times a game just to let people back in. So
Twickenham would still sell out even if you couldn't buy a drink during the game.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think you'd probably get a very different demographic at the game as well. I think that was a big difference as well. How family orientated like the big games are, and you have all these and look, youth and kids bring energy, and I think they're there to watch the rugby, watch their favourite players, and they are invested for the full 80 minutes and excited about the whole game. And I think sometimes when people are they literally go to Twickenham, it's the biggest pub in the world, isn't it? I think people go there just to drink and spend time with their mates. So yeah, it's obviously very different, and with the ticket prices, that's probably part of the reason. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool to get try and build this younger generation coming to international matches.
Right, should we get back to Saturday's game at Murrayfield? It's a good time to bring in the Evening Standard's rugby correspondent Nick Purewal. Nick, you were up in Edinburgh. You saw it all unfold. What were the key messages that Steve Borthwick was saying post-match? Because he probably looked as frustrated as the rest of us.
Well, I think he was trying to keep a lid on his anger, but he couldn't stop the steam coming out of his ears, to be quite honest. I've not seen him I don't think he's been so damning of his own team in the time he's been in charge, but he was doing that while being quite measured as well. But I think there'll be some difficult words said when England reconvene in York on Wednesday for training in this fallow week, and I think some of those will basically be from the coaches to the players. We believe the plan works, but if you stray from it, then it doesn't work, and when we tell you to do something, you've got to do it. And I think the players were fairly candid about deviating from the plan themselves anyway. So they seem to think they know what's wrong, and they seem to think that the plan they do have will still deliver the goods. But I think it's not really a team that can continue to develop. It's a team that's expected to win. That's what Mario Tojo was saying. We expect to win every game, and that's the expectation upon us. Well, if that's the case, then it's time to start upping the levels.
A little sneaky peek at what the QBE Predictor is forecasting for round 4, which is Scotland will take on Italy, and that one is Scotland will win 35-14. In fact, it's predicting away wins in every game. So France will head to Cardiff, and that one is going to be 23-16 to France, according to Predictor. And then the big one for us, which is England against Ireland, and the QBE Predictor is saying 27-18.
England can win this game, no doubt about it. And there is a much bigger performance in all of those players. So yeah, listen, what England need to do is yes, they're evolving their own style, but you've got to have a few little tricks up your sleeve that can actually, when you're not as good as your opponent, and I don't think England are as good as Ireland yet, in fact, by quite a long way. You need to have one or two little things up your sleeve. That's what the Scots used to do. They used to, you can ambush sides with a change of tactics, with a couple of little cute manoeuvres. And I think we need to start thinking about being a little bit more innovative out on the rugby field. As a group of senior players, I'd be going, right, who can we get stuck into and wind up here a little bit and find a way of winning? Find a way to win. Don't just wait for things to happen.
And we need an atmosphere like there was 2 years ago. I remember it well when who was sent off right at the beginning of the game, and the crowd got
it was Charlie Ewell.
Charlie Ewell.
But listen,
look, but the crowd were so behind the team then because they were up against it for virtually the entire match.
Wouldn't it be nice for England, for a change, to spoil someone else's party? Wouldn't it?
It would.
I mean, if someone comes into your own home, you don't let them rob you of your possessions, do you?
No.
So if Ireland want to come to Twickenham, it's like having someone burgle your own home. Send them away. Simple as that.
Don't ever rob Mr. Dallaglio's home. That's all I'll say.
Next week, we'll look ahead to round 4 in more detail. But now it only remains for me to thank our special guest, Cadan Murley. And thanks, of course, to the double duo, the Batman and Robin of the Evening Standard, Steve Cording and Nick Purewal. And, of course, thanks to Voxpod Studios.
Does that make me Robin? Or are you Batman? Am I Robin?
That's in there.
Thanks for listening and goodbye.